Now begins the intro to Dead End City. The typeface clearly inspired by, I think Daimahu in particular, but the Mahou Daisuke games in general. The style of the game inspired by the Road Warrior movies and the Hokuto no Ken anime. Henry Rollins yell. Recording's going. Let's start the game. We really ought to get the 1cc on this run. I had been playing with this guy, Crankcase. I did most of my runs with him, and then I switched over to Shiro for a couple. And Crankcase is definitely hard mode compared to this character. He's got a narrow shot that makes the game a lot more difficult. So here, you start right into it with these Galaga style waves. So each stage is going to have 7 of those, and it's going to have your traditional scrolling stage, and then a boss fight. I think that gives you a lot of variety, makes the game feel shorter and faster paced than it actually is. I think that the clear actually runs like 30 minutes or something like that, maybe more. I guess it depends on how long it takes you to defeat the waves and the bosses. But it feels like 20 minutes just because it's shifting between all these stage types, which I like. The Dev mentioned that Galaga 88 was one of the inspirations for the game, and you can definitely feel that. I know a lot of people aren't too big on, or a lot of shmup players aren't too big on the classic invaders and Galaga style, where you can only move left and right. So this game kind of takes that and updates it with 8-directional movement, which it definitely feels more natural, but at the same time you can get yourself into trouble by moving up too far and getting sideswiped by some of these enemy waves that come in. So you actually do mostly want to stay towards the back, at least as long as you don't know exactly what's coming in. And because there's 7 waves per stage and 5 stages, that's a lot to memorize in terms of incoming enemy formations. And they go by quickly, especially early in the game. Once you get your multiplier up to 9, you start seeing those metal items drop. I think your multiplier has to be a 9. I'm actually not sure, but at least you'll see more of them. Once your multiplier is up to 9, which is the max value. And you can raise it more quickly by using your special shot. But with this character, it seems like it goes up on its own pretty quickly, just by using the normal shot. I guess technically there's 3 shot types. There's the normal shot, the special shot, which is the second button that has ammo, and then there's the top off shot. And top off mode is when your fuel meter is filled up, and you've got that glowing flame around the car. And that only lasts for a certain amount of time because your fuel meter does gradually drain. So you need to keep picking up fuel items, staying top off. And the top off shot, that is just a more powerful version of your standard shot. The only sort of power up that you get, really. You could say, I mean, if you really wanted to stretch it, you could compare it to a hyper mode, but it's not something that you independently have to deploy. That big grenade I just fired is the special shot for this character. It has huge coverage, does good damage, and it generates a lot of these items, of which there are 3 types. Fuel items, refill your fuel meter, which is also your life meter and controls that top-off shot. The ammo items power up your, or refill your special. And the medals, which are of course just a score item. That boss goes by quite quickly, and if you no-miss any of the boss fights, you get this additional rival fight afterwards. And this is how you unlock extra cars. You can also buy them in the shop through gradually accumulated currency, which basically just is derived from your score at the end of a run. I think I've seen all the rival fights at this point. I know I've seen at least the stage 1, 2, and 4 ones. Don't remember exactly if I've seen the stage 3 one, but I have all the cars unlocked because I was lucky enough to be provided a file from the dev. Saved me a little bit of time grinding, but I don't really think that you'd have to grind for very long if you wanted to buy them from the shop. You know, it'd be like 10 runs, you know, near complete runs. Or you could just be really careful and work on getting those rival battles. The first one, I think, is almost free. You know, once you know that first boss, no missing it is not a particularly high challenge. I mean, compared to what the rest of the game is going to be. I think in general, I actually find the boss fights to be... I don't want to say tame, because that sounds boring, and I don't think that they're boring, because it's cool the way that you pick them apart. But I actually find the wave stages to be the hardest part of the game. Scrolling stages, not so bad. I don't know that I've ever died on a scrolling stage, really. You don't have any extra lives, so if you run out of health, that's it. But yeah, some of the later bosses, I'll die on those, like stage 4. And obviously the final boss, stage 5 boss. But these early ones aren't too bad. So this stage introduces these mortars, which are very similar to the attack, the special shot that this character has. And the main difficulty I have with those is that they sort of pop up a landing area, that red circle where they're going to hit. And it's actually a little hard to watch that while you're also watching bullets coming at you from elsewhere on the screen. So really, when it comes to the mortars, I'm more so listening to the sound effect that tells me when they're coming, and trying not to flail all over the screen and send mortars everywhere. You know, just slowly dodge out of the way of them so that they kind of stay close to each other. And I think that black ball, the mortar projectile itself, will not hit you if you drive directly through it. They only hit the landing point, so they're sort of, as you can imagine, flying through the air above the car. As long as I don't take any hits, my multiplier will stay maxed out. Not playing for score here, but definitely does feel more satisfying to have that maxed out multiplier. Here, I'm going to let those trucks go. Would have been too risky to try to get in front of them and point blank them, even though this character is pretty good at point blanking, compared to Crankcase, who sucks at it. You don't ever want to get in front of anything with him. Oh yeah, there's a really hard to perceive wall in the middle of that track segment. Little Ken's gym over to the left, little Hakuto no Ken reference. This is the North Star. Yeah, the hitbox of the car is pretty big, and the hitbox of the terrain and enemies is also quite big. And that's something on bosses in particular that can give you less space to deal with than you might think that you have. With bullets, I think it's not that big a deal. It's just with collisions that it gets me sometimes. So yeah, my multiplier's all shot to hell now. I lost track of a bullet in there. And that shower of items. That can happen sometimes. I think the items maybe could use some transparency. I probably... yeah. Something I don't need to say out loud. This boss you can be more picking it apart, like shooting these turrets that spawn on the sides of it. Presumably that's what you want to do for score, but it's also helpful just for standard play, because as you take off elements of it, you're just taking off the things that are spawning or that are shooting at you. The bosses don't do any sort of revenge stuff where dismantling them makes them more difficult. You're always making the fight, you're always simplifying the fight by taking parts off of a boss. Let's see if we can finish them off with the mortar. Oh no, it's not quite. After they die, you can still shoot them to generate more items, and that's a good time to throw in another special, because the items they drop are probably going to recharge your special anyway. And even if they don't, you don't really need that at the beginning of the next stage, because you do, at the end of each wave or stage segment, you get a fuel bonus, and that makes sure you don't come into the next segment with 0 fuel, basically. Your fuel does drain over time. It's similar to the 1943 health meter. Actually, I'd say it's almost exactly the same as the 1943 fuel meter, where it'll drain over time, but it'll never kill you by running out. So if it's at the minimum possible level, it'll just stay there, and one shot will kill you. But there's lots of fuel items generated by killing enemies. And in the scrolling stages, a lot of times there's scenery that you can destroy for extra fuel items. The other way to get more is to stay in fuel time mode, which you can see is indicated in the bottom right. And that just means that you have your specials fully stocked. So if your specials are fully stocked, then you won't see ammo items anymore, because you don't need ammo items, and instead all the ammo items will be fuel items. And that can help you keep your fuel topped off, which is going to help keep your main shot more powerful. But it will also mean less items are generated, which actually can, especially in boss fights or against stronger enemies, it can actually hurt you to cling to fuel time, because you won't be generating items that you would be if your multiplier was up or you were using a special shot. So like there, I sacrificed fuel time, but I got a ton of items for it. And my special will be recharged pretty quickly anyway. I am not really worried about dying at this point in the game. So, unless I'm particularly low on health, again, I don't need to cling to that fuel time constantly. Especially given that this character has a pretty decent shot whether or not they're topped off. The top off shot is a waggle shot, and it's got a really wide range, which can be useful against bosses. But the normal shot is still a 2-bullet wide shot, which is probably, over the full screen length, it probably ends up being about 3 cars wide, maybe 2. Whereas some of the characters' shots, default shots, are like skinnier than the car itself. I could use the mortar to get this enemy up on the cliff. Here, let's give it a shot. There we go. If you don't have a special attack that'll get those guys on the cliff, then you need to use these explosive barrels to do it. So again, for instance, Crankcase doesn't have any way to hit enemies up on the cliff without those barrels. They're not the most threatening enemies. They just shoot 1 bullet here and there. But it feels good to get rid of everyone. No prisoners. These boulders you really want to steer clear of because they do have pretty large hitboxes. Or hurt boxes, I guess. That's a pretty short rolling stage, I think. It's a fun one. Big scatter items there from using the special. And we just want to take out the drills on the side. That's the basic strategy here. Those rocks that they generate or scatter, fast moving, a bit tough to dodge. Here we got a really fast shot. Just gotta watch out for what's the timing of. See, we got a full recharge from using that special shot there. Generated enough items. Yeah, once again, full recharge. I think this character is pretty good for getting those. Now it's yet another full recharge there at the end. So we got him with lots of mortars as he went down. Alright, time for dessert. These motorbikes are very fast, and this is where they start throwing stuff at you that spawns from the bottom of the screen. You get a nice little warning exclamation mark for that, but the way that the enemies loop around is not necessarily intuitive or obvious. So it's not just like you can sidestep them. Watch, see those guys, like, they make a U-turn almost immediately as they come on screen. These ones, though, they make that loop and then they just kind of continue forward. Then we got ones that sort of loop around, or U-turn before you go into the side. It reminds me of like the Popcorn Rush stage. I think it's stage 4 in Eschatos, the beginning of it. You got a lot of those strings moving around and looping around. I mean, it's just straight up Galaga as well. Of course, in Galaga, it's more about timing your shots, where here you've got a fairly continuous forward shot. So if you can cut off a string of popcorn, it depends on your character somewhat, but certainly with this character, if you can cut off a string of popcorn, they're just going to get blown up as they go across your stream of bullets. You don't have to time the shots, really. Alright, so we're losing all our multiplier now. We're making lots of little mistakes. Try to use the special to get it back. Yeah, those ones just kind of bob up and then fall back down. This is probably the hardest of the scrolling stages. Again, it's not super tough, but there's these guys here, these dual wielding guys that shoot a pretty tight, consistent stream of bullets. It'd be hard to get in a shot on them. Again, depending on character, it might be good to use your special shot to take them out. And there's these landmines here. Those white items on the ground, you'll probably see me set one off eventually. As well as these barbed wire barricades. Some of the scenery items, like barrels and crates, you can safely crash into and you don't take any damage, but the barricades will damage you, so those are more like enemies. I think I kind of had an intuitive sense of that as soon as I saw them. Like, they look like they would hurt. Yeah, there goes a couple landmines. You can avoid most of them. Just a delayed explosion, so you drive straight through, it won't hit you. Alright, we're all topped off, and fuel time. Multiplier is garbage. Ah, stupid hit there. We got our fuel back though. This part looks harder than it is. Homing bullets are not tough to dodge as long as you have the rhythm of them. They move quickly, but the homing is very loose. So you just kind of have the right time. Kind of have to have the right time at which to sidestep. Slur through words a lot when I'm playing and talking. That's hard to hit with the mortar. He's pretty deep in the hovercraft, and I don't like to get too close to it and mess with those collision hitboxes. But as long as you're focused, the patterns aren't too tough to dodge. The bullets are curving a little bit, so the first couple times you see it, you might think it's weird. You get used to it. Alright, on to the final stage. So I like the way that these wave stages, see it says airstrike there, they've got like a little quote before each of the waves. And beyond just being flavor text, I think that's nice because it gives a name to what's coming up and gives you like a little warning, a reminder of like this is the next segment of the stage. And for me, I guess because I'm a pretty verbal learner, verbal person in general, having a name for something is a huge part of memory. So when I'm when I'm learning to play shmup, I kind of give things names. I give enemies names. I give patterns names. Just it kind of gives me a script to work with as I replay the game. And having the game segment and give that to you itself is just like doing part of my job for me, essentially, which I appreciate. These enemies are all very identifiable, clearly distinguished designs, so that helps too. Versus like 6 different types of tanks that have 2 pixels different on their sprites. Or like some kind of mix of a bug and a dragon. And an anime girl that I can't identify. It's just like drones, motorbikes, jetpacks, tanks. It's all pretty cut and dry. Let's see if we can bomb some of these guys. Oh, I took a dumb hit. Final scrolling stage. Riff here. Opens up with the exact riff from Holy Diver. Although, in fairness, Holy Diver is the exact riff from Heaven and Hell, so everyone's stealing from everyone. I don't actually remember which one of those is first, Heaven and Hell or Holy Diver. I think it's Heaven and Hell, because I think that's 1980. I think Holy Diver is 81. So I think Dio solo stuff is after you do those 2 albums of Sabbath. Sabbath ones are way better. Anyway, the rest of the song isn't Holy Diver, it's just that opening riff. Yeah, all these like fuel tanks and the scenery, anything that looks like it's destructible probably gives you fuel cans. So it's good to go out of your way to get that stuff. Or to shoot that stuff, essentially. I didn't want to get trapped by one of the barriers against the bottom of the screen, and I ended up making a pattern that was undodgeable, walling myself. The don't want to get too greedy with the items. It's really easy to wall yourself and to just wander into a bullet, because the bullets here are pretty slow and they tend to move at a similar speed to the items. Okay, welcome back, guys. Thanks. Put some pressure on me as I go into the final boss. It's really casual up till now. Makes it more interesting. Topped off again. Try to take out these inside cannons first. Alright, that takes a lot of the pressure off. Now we can try to grind away at these solar panels. Those are the there are extra turrets that you can hit, but the solar panels are the actual weak point of the boss during this phase. That's the life bar. Because they're kind of far back into the boss, I haven't found it that useful to use the special to try to hit them. But here we will try to use it. Don't get too greedy with those items. Slow bullets. God, I hate slow bullets. Give me fast bullets any day. Get the heck off the screen already. Alright, I think that's the end of the fight. Still bomb in there. Well, this game's all about destroying the weapons. I'm glad you guys showed up just in time to see the clear. I didn't destroy all of it, though. There are parts on the far edges of it that I let go. Oh, his daughter's named Yuria, just like Ken's girlfriend. Just English for Julia. Yeah, Reggie, that's the name of the developer. That name always makes you think of the Phantasm movies. Yeah, it's a good ending track. Emotional to let the clear sink in. That's what Peppa Paco said. Alright, so the score was almost exactly the same as the score, or as my score when I died at the final boss last time. 1.6 million. I'm guessing the leaderboard still doesn't seem to be working. Oh yeah, it wasn't even my high score. You can see here. The one where I died at the final boss was better. I feel so manly now. Real men cry to melodic guitar tunes, while my guitar gently weeps. It's a classic. Yeah, high scores. Yeah, so it doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be uploading them. So I don't think that would have been a particularly good performance anyway. But there you go. There's the 1cc. I better cut the recording before I forget. Um, it's a fun little game. Definitely a good one to check out for $10. I think that's a good price for this game. Very casual game. I think anyone could pick this up and get into it and clear it.